So welcome. In this video, we're now looking at force, right? So my forces they are just things. Tingati, it's when we apply certain pressure on an object, and it whether to pull that object or to push that object, and it. So a force can be just defined as basically what a pull cannot. It's what it's a push, and it. So whenever you find a definition for a force, the simplest is just a what? It's just a pull cannot. It's what? It's a push, and it. So the SI unit for force, it's what? It's my newtons. That's the basic unit. And so let's say, for example, you have pushed a table. You push it with a particular force, and then its SI unit will be in newtons. Is that okay? So I'm going to push it in 8. Push on a 8 power. You say that I have pushed it with 8 newtons, and it will come up to know kuti my newtons are and it. Then a force is a vector quantity, and the reason why we say that it is a vector quantity is because it has both what magnitude as well as what direction, and it. So when you say it has magnitude, panapa tichirevera kuti chine size, and it. So any force in a particular size in that particular size here, if it has a direction, it qualifies the issue of vectors, and it. So let's say, for example, waimbeta vectors in mathematics, which is a b, possibly vector represent like you have a and you have what b, and then here and then you have this, right? So it would mean that the vector a to b will be equal to what? To a, and it. Is that okay? So which means if a force can be affected by direction, and the vector is affected by direction, a b is equals to what? A, which means kuti kana takubva from b to what? To a to be a force opposing, and it. So that will be what? That will be equal to what? The negative, and it. So the effects of a force on an object, and it. So a force is able to make the object, number one, speed up, and speeding up is what we know is what is acceleration, and it. So if you are saying to something is speeding up, it means it's changing its speed, and it. So if the speed ikatanga iri diki yobva yanonokwira, let's say that the speed started at 20 ndiro yatanga at 20, maybe it's possibly 20 meters per what? Per second, and then you have an increase from 20 meters per second, and it becomes what? 30 meters per second. That increase in speed is what we call what? Acceleration. So a force is able to make an object to what? To accelerate. And another thing is that a force makes an object to slow down. That is, if its acceleration becomes negative, cannot acceleration, that's what we call what? Deceleration, and it. In another word, answer for deceleration is known as what? It's a retardation, and it. Retardation is the other word. Then the change in direction, it can also cause the change in direction of what? Movement of an object, and it. So let's say, for example, we have possibly something moving in this direction, and it. And then it encounters something that is moving in that direction. So at the end of the day, chinokwanisa kunge chachinja direction chotanga move chichienda another way, and it is because a force has been applied, and it. Then after it has been applied, it has caused a resultant change in what? In direction. We also have a force causing objects to change shape, and it. For example, unokwanisa kutsimbirira let's say you have a balloon, and the balloon is filled with air. Ukaritsimbirira rinochinja shape, and saka the way rinochinja shape, it's based on the force you apply on the what? On the balloon, and also again it can make something to be stationary or to make an object not to move, because the word here stationary is the word which means not moving, and it. Saka a force can do that. Are we together? Let's say, for example, motikari ine mabrakes, and motikari ine mabrakes yakatsikwa mabrakes inengoramba ingori panzvimbo 1, and it. let's say kuti iri pamukwidza but yakatsikwa mabrakes obva waramba uchiona yakamira and the normal thing is that inofanira kuita sei kudzika but haichadzike. Why? Because iri kubatwa nemabrakes andit. So that's another thing that it can do. Then the last is that it makes a moving object to stop, and it can do pekuti watsika mabrake motikari ichifamba then ibva yaregedza kufamba. So bata the fact yekuti a force is a vector, and it can either be a pull or push. So that pull or push is in a particular direction, and it. So under forces we have what are known as contact forces as well as non-contact forces. So the contact forces and non-contact forces are based on the issue ye contact. So if two things are meeting up together, let's say we have this and this, they are meeting up together at a particular point, right? We would say those things are in contact, but as long as we have let's say we have this one and we have this one, and my forces are arangogumira ukoko apa haasi kuita haasi kubatana, we would say that they are not in contact. And saka tine type examples forces, those forces that involve contact and those forces that don't involve contact. And so pama contact forces, the two interacting objects are in physical contact with each other to exert a push or a pull on each other. Then we also have the non-contact forces, they interact without themselves having touching each other. And some forces are aripo but ana contact. And so examples in contact forces, we have, for example, frictional force, we also have tension, we have a normal force, right? A normal force, it means normal. Let's say, for example, you have a table, right? And saka table yako yakadai, and let's say kuti pane taisa cup pamusoro petable, and taisa cup pamusoro petable, chaita kuti cup yedu irambe yakangomira isingazodone isingati sei, is because cup is exerting a force downwards, and the force that is exerting is it's called weight. And then weight yedu, since it will go down, there is also another opposite force that is going upwards, that is called a normal force. And are we together? So a normal force is usually a force inenge in line with with weight, but then it's going on opposite directions. And then we also have air resistance. For example, muair munotange musina chinhu zvamanditi, but then ukatora bhuku rako and then bhuku rako you try to move it, right? You discover kuti even like iri bepa, you discover kuti bepa rinenge richitanga riri kupushwa more, like let's say for example waritora rinoita nge rikuita sei riri kupushwa, rather rachifanira kungogara rangomuvha ringori straight risina any force yari kuita sei yari kuexperience. So we have air resistance. We also have applied forces again, and those are examples of what are called contact forces. They require contact. And then we have non-contact forces, and the first example that I might just give is the one yatinonyatsoziva, which is called the magnetic force, and whereby we can have two magnets repelling each other, and two magnets are not kutombobatana, but they are able to repel each other. And so that type of a magnetic force is what we would say it's a non-contact. And we also have electrical force, and force, electricity, it also has a force, and electrical force yedu inokwanisa nge inokwanisa kutoitika isina any contact. And then we also have gravitational force, whereby if we throw an object comes down, and with a particular force, because isusu patirikukanda chinhu mudenga, force yataisa ndeye kuenda mudenga, but then pakuzoona chinhu chakudzika downwards, right, it means kuti there is a force iri kukonzeresa kuti chiro chese chitodzikawo downwards, right? So I think in the next lesson we'll be looking at the balanced forces as well as unbalanced forces, such that we can come up to discuss the Newton's laws and everything.